Olá, hoje eu tenho um convidado muito especial. Nós vamos falar com o Matiu Te Hook. Ele é neozelandês, ele é maori, a cultura indígena tradicional da Nova Zelândia. Ele é músico, ele é escritor e ele é um grande amigo. E hoje nós vamos falar sobre a importância de vulnerabilidade e de rever o papel do masculino e do feminino na nossa vida e de valores humanos importantes nesse momento de mundo. Matiu, thank you so much for being here.
Kia ora, Sandra. Thank you for bringing me in, and greetings to everybody out there tuning in to us.
When I was recently listening to you in a concert, you were talking about standing up as a man in a way that you believe it's important, that is different from the way some societies that are very patriarchal operate. And if we even consider the workplace, it's super patriarchal. Especially in Brazil, in our culture, the society is very dominated by men. So I just wanted to listen to you a little bit about how do you see the world right now, the role of the men, the feminine and the masculine, and how, yes, what you're learning about that.
Yeah, that's been a big part of my journey over the years, is learning how to be a solid yet soft man and how to appreciate and lift up the woman around me. I'm very aware that there's a history of men not honoring and not supporting women. And unfortunately, it is still like that in many parts of the world. So for me, I've spent a lot of time working on myself as a man so I can be strong, so I can be gentle as well, and break out of those stereotypes that we're offered as children, that we see on movies, that we see in our society. And I also believe that it's a really important time for men to really show up, do their work, so that we're not boys in men's bodies. So we do our work, we heal our past, we strengthen ourselves, so we can lift up the women around us. So long the women have been pushed down, so it's time for the men to lift the women up. But it's also time for the women to, through their ways, to lift men up. It's time for us to lift each other up. And if you got a moment, I could share the spoken word that I recited at your house that day.
Please, please.
Okay. To be a good man. To be a good man in this day and age, I look at the old book and I tear out some pages, looking and learning from the past and now being courageous. Courageous enough to not try and be all tough and like, she'll be right, let's just have another beer. Nah, fuck that. Let's feel all this gut-wrenching fear. Let's feel all this gut-wrenching fear, pain and sadness, confusion and loss, losing patriarchal control, no longer the boss. No room for this macho jerk. It's time to do the work. Work on my beliefs, my stories, my childhood wounds. Work on my habits, my vices. No longer rolling those dice when it's other people at risk, when it's other people's lives. No more neglecting our children. No more cheating on our wives. No more charming and using. No more anything abusing. It's time to show up. It's time for us men to stand as great men amongst great men again. So, women, sisters, we're sorry. And now we're here taking responsibility and showing that we care.
Every time that it's the second time that I hear you speak this poem, and it goes straight to my heart. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
And you talked about it's time for men to lift women up, but it's also time for women to lift their men up. It's time for each other. I worked since very early as well in my life, and my journey took me actually to be the vice president of a big multinational company, an agency, advertising agency, at the age of 28. And when I was 30 years old, I had 250 employees in 5 different countries. And one day I looked at myself and I saw that I was doing the same as men.
Mm.
You know, I had so much because that's how we learn to survive in the workplace. And my boss was super patriarchal. It was really actually even aggressive. And to survive, I learned to do the same, you know, to be this strong and, you know, nothing will touch me. So now your words, and it took me actually 10 years of therapy and inner work to actually welcome the feminine in me and to have a more balanced feminine and masculinity. So I hear what you're saying that we both need to lift each one's up. And I think that's an important skill, just to be in the word.
Mm.
And I wanted to ask you also about vulnerability. You know, we live in a time that is very competitive, especially in the workplace. You know, it's super competitive. And what do you think is the role of being vulnerable in that context? What is this important right now?
I think the first part of being vulnerable for me is being authentic and being transparent. And people will accept you or not, but at least they know who they're dealing with. I think another part of it is acknowledging when we've made mistakes and owning the mistakes and cleaning up the mess that we might have made through our mistakes. For me, when somebody, especially a leader or someone I look up to, says, I made a mistake, I did it, I'm going to clean it up, my respect for that person goes, regardless of the size of the mistake or the transgression or whatever they've done. But when people say it was their fault or I wasn't responsible, it's like, now I can't trust you, you know? So I think being vulnerable for me is being transparent. And regardless of what you've done, when people are honest about it, my respect for them is there. In fact, the worst, if they've done really bad stuff and they own it, my respect is there for them, and I start trusting them, even if they've done things that I might think are whatever. So I think that's a big part of it.
You know that I interviewed Cristina Nogueira, that is uh, a consultant and advisor to some of the CEOs of the biggest companies in Brazil. And I was talking to her about what is important to someone, what the companies value in the professionals they work for, and what she would think it's important. And she was talking exactly what you said about reliability, about, you know, owning your
Mm,
mistakes. There is no problem of doing mistakes, but owning your mistakes, and, you know, really having a attitude of, okay, what can I do about it? Like, for example, traffic. We have very huge traffic in Brazil. You go to big cities like Sao Paulo, like Rio, you stay an hour at least in traffic.
mm,
And then she said, okay, you arrive in a meeting and said, oh, I'm sorry, there was traffic. But you know, it will be traffic every day. So because you know, what can you do about it? So really, you know, instead of using excuses, what can we do about it? What can we do different? So uh, being transparent and reliable, I think it's a very important thing. And being vulnerable makes you feel stronger. I feel that about myself. Every time that I ask for help, the person thinks more about myself and not the opposite. How many times do we ask for help, but we are vulnerable to say, I don't know what to do with this. Can you
mm,
help me? And it
mm,
always, I can see the respect increases and not
mm,
diminishes.
mm.
And just before we end, I wanted to know about how do you manage your time? You know, how do you actually make space for the different things that you do? You do so many different things. And how do you value time?
Good question. Time has become more and more precious for me. Um, so the first thing I do is I get my crucial morning practices out of the way before I do anything else in my day. So I wake up, I meditate in bed, I do my breath work in bed, then I go outside, put my feet on the earth, and I ground and I do qigong and I haka, and then I take my supplements that are really important for me. And once I've got all those things out of the way, Then I dive into work, which is quite often online, internet, emails, and things like that. I fast in the morning, which means I don't have to worry about food until lunchtime. Mate helps me with that. I plan, and I also, if I don't get through all the things that I plan to do, that I don't beat myself up for it, because I'm making the most of my time. And also make sure that I prioritize time for family and for people to spend time with, because quite often that is the last thing we put in our diary for the day, and we might get to spend half an hour with our partner at the end of the day and we're all tired and can't really connect properly. I'm really blessed, I don't have a day job. I don't have to leave the property a lot of the time. I'm doing a lot of stuff from home, which I suppose a lot of people are these days. So just making sure that I've got discipline to get the important things out of the way, and that helps me feel positive about my days. Prioritizing
not only work, taking care.
Yeah, as I said,
yourself.
I do my practices before everything else.
Yeah. And I think that's really important those times that we are working online so much. For example, if I have 3 conversations online, one after the other, I am exhausted. My energy goes, completely goes away. So I learned over time to understand that I need to have 15-minute breaks before one call and the other. I won't do a workshop. I do lots of workshops online with big groups, but I won't do a workshop of more than 2 hours without a break. So just learning, and that we need to be in a good place so that we can do the work that needs to be done. I think it's a super important. Would you like to say anything to the people in Brazil that are listening to you right now that you think could help our country in this moment in time? We have, just as a reference, we are one of the worst countries in the world dealing with the pandemic. And when I talk about the professional of the future, I am very aware that for people like myself, like you, we live in a nice place. We can work online. So, okay, life, it's hard, but it's good. But for some people that lost their job or they live in a very small place, life can be very hard. So what would you like to say to people in Brazil right now?
I think apart from doing what you can to take care of yourself and all of your well-being areas, I think it's really important that we stay in our power all the time and we don't give our power away. And I know that in times like this, our governments and the media can say, we're here to save you, we're here to look after you. And I think that's really lovely, but I think we need to make sure we look after ourselves and we don't give our power away.
Take care of ourselves and don't give our power away. I will stay with this for a while now. Thank you for this gift. And thank you for being here today, Matiu. It was an amazing conversation.
It's been my pleasure. It's been really lovely to spend some more time with you and to share that. And also I hope that my offerings can bring something to the people listening. It's been really lovely to share.
E obrigada a você que está nos assistindo. Se você quiser ver outra entrevista da série Profissional do Futuro, ou quem sabe rever a entrevista com o Matiu, acesse Globoplay. E até a nossa próxima entrevista.